in this study, we're looking at just performance. So it's we're going to talk about it, but it's basically a regular TT. So you're saying that with the studies, with the data suggests today is if you're doing 2 longer workouts, or maybe we're going to do Cape Epic this year, or if you're doing the Tour de France, or you're doing a stage race where it might be exhaustion is your limiter, that doing this probably is a benefit. But what you're looking for is if you're going to do a TT later that day, or like an hour-long TT or 30-minute TT, right? And to see if you can actually put out more wattage for that time, where it's not exhaustion is your limiter, but actual maximum power output. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I think our study needs to be interpreted in a certain way, so the results are not clear-cut.
Yes.
And we can't really say that, like for a time trial, fructose is not the best way to go for. So that study, so after the glycogen depletion in the morning and 4 hours of refeeding, what we did was first had 1 hour of steady state exercise. That was kind of zone 2. And it was a fixed intensity, so that we were able to actually see what happens with the metabolism, like carbohydrate oxidation rates. We also assessed how much of the carbohydrates that were ingested during the recovery were actually utilized in that hour. And then we had a 40-minute long time trial.
And Tim, prior to that, you really ran them down. You had a protocol that really tapped their glycogen stores, correct?
Yeah, I'd like to step back one step before that of why test, because how do you even get zone 2 on these athletes, right? I mean, do they tell your FTP? I think you used VO2 max, and why did you use that?
So it's we usually like do watt max relative to watt max. At least in this study, we used a watt max, which is like how high you can get on a ramp test during a VO2 max test. And this is just what everybody is using these days in the research. Still, I think this is really outdated, and it shouldn't be like used. It should be the intensity should be set relative to like probably critical power or functional threshold or lactate threshold, whichever, like let's say physiological or threshold, rather than like end power of the ramp test.
They're using the highest 3-minute average over the course of a ramp test, right?
It was actually like the last completed stage plus a fraction of the one that was failed.
Okay.
And that's where you start at 100 watts, and there's a stepped increase every so many minutes.
30 watts per minute.
Yeah.
We increased by 30 watts every 2 minutes, I think.
2 minutes, right?
So the next thing I want to talk about, what Chad was just alluding to. So now we know what wattage you want to put people at. The protocol for glycogen reduction. This sounds pure evil. I think we could build this on TrainerRoad, by the way. But what is this protocol that you use to like first? Because what you first did is get all the glycogen away, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's something to replenish.
Yeah. So the protocol is like a high intensity interval training session. So it's 90% of this watt max that we achieved during the graded exercise test. So that's probably corresponds to like way above the FTP, just to put the numbers into perspective. So it's 2 minutes on this intensity, then reduced to 2 minutes at zone 2. So there is no real rest actually. So it's still pretty hard. And then you go for as long as you can, 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off. And once you cannot do like this 90% watt max anymore, we reduce the intensity to 80% for 2 minutes, 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off again, until you cannot go anymore. And then we reduce the intensity to 70%. And when you can't sustain the 70%, which is usually already below the lactate threshold or the functional threshold power, which is like in the sweet spot zone somewhere, we just stop because they can't even cycle at 50%. That's really hard. Some studies actually use even 60%. So they're actually both intensities are actually almost in zone 2, and they just can't do anymore. But we found that it's pretty similar in terms of duration and the glycogen depletion. So the effects are pretty similar.
how much glycogen actually gets depleted? Because it doesn't ever go down to zero, correct?
Oh no, it never goes to zero. So it depends from study to study and participant to participant. So in my opinion, the more trained you are, the higher the concentrations at the beginning of exercise, and also the higher they are towards the end of exercise bout. But you deplete them like for more than 50%, and you're really tired by the end of exercise. Whereas like untrained participants can go really, really low, but their starting concentrations are low as well. We have to know that like muscle glycogen, it's not like just one pool of this glycogen, but we have these different pools of glycogen. So within myofibrillar, intramyofibrillar, intermyofibrillar, so within different parts of the muscle tissue. And we usually the analysis is done just on the whole level of the muscle rather than like localized depletion. And we don't really know. Probably the most important pools, the ones that are like determining the exercise capacity performance, are depleted almost completely, whereas the others are still there, but they're not helping with the energy availability.
And then Tim, is it also true that highly trained athletes can run their glycogen stores down further than untrained athletes?
In my personal opinion, no, because there is this hypothesis of glycogen threshold that they have to go below 300. Doesn't matter the units. I think I'm pretty well trained athlete, and I've done 3 glycogen depletions with muscle biopsies at the end, and only during one was I able to go below 300. And there are other studies as well, kind of indicating that this might be the case. That's my personal view, but it's pretty difficult to get very, very low.
Side note,
thanks.
Do muscle biopsies hurt a lot?
Sometimes.
Can you train the next day or that day, or are you out for a while?
Oh yeah, my last PhD study was, so it was a really, really similar protocol. So we did the glycogen depletion, straight to the table for a muscle biopsy, 4 hours of recovery, drinking galactose and different sugars, and then another biopsy, straight on the bike and cycling for another hour and a half.
See, Chad, it's not that bad. We have
side note to a side note. Does that mean you're investigating galactose also?
There is one study already published about lactose, and there are a few coming out about galactose as well. Sometime in the future. Yeah.
We've done blood lactate tests on our other podcast, Ask a Cycling Coach, and Chad and I are very like textbook, which I think, what is it, lactated or a lactic threshold's like 4 millimoles, right?
Yeah.
And the other host, Jonathan, he's at like 22 or 18 or something, and we want to see if he has higher fast twitch or not. But there's this fear that it's like a surgery and that you're out for like weeks and it's going to be a whole bunch of pain and you're going to cry.
That's not my fear.
Tim's done it twice.
What's your fear? It's just that it hurts.
Tim did it 2 in a row. Be tough. You're a cyclist. Should
Tim's
be
tougher
easy.
than I am.
It's perfectly fine. I mean, in Scandinavian countries, they are most experienced in this biopsy technique, and they're doing crazy studies in terms of how many biopsies they're doing, and everybody survived so far. So
we're going to hop on a plane once COVID's open.
It's weight loss too, right, Nate?
It's what?
It's weight loss.
Totally is weight loss. Okay, so during this glycogen reduction, which is before, because you want to have some kind of room to put in these extra carbs. So I'm guessing during that time, did they just drink water, or did they have any kind of carbs during the glycogen reduction?
They only had water. Although I think I have a hypothesis that you could actually reduce the glycogen concentrations even further if you had glucose around, just because you maintain the blood sugar levels and you kind of still burn the muscle glycogen. But that's just a hypothesis of mine.
Is that how you got your lowest glycogen levels?
No, it was purely water, but so.
I agree with that. It's like at the end of Leadville, when you're taking carbs the whole time, that's when you feel the worst and you can't move your legs. because you get to go lower. So another side note. And then, okay, so then we did this. You did this. And then you gave people, it was double blind, right? And what does double blind mean?
That means that neither the participant or the researcher that is present in the room with the participant, they both don't know what the composition of carbohydrates actually in this case was. So another researcher from the school mixed the sugars and just gave us the drink, and we just gave it to participants.
That's so you don't influence the outcome, right? The person goes, "Ooh, I'm getting the super fuel. I'm going to do better."
So, for instance, the first study we did wasn't double-blinded; it was only single-blinded. So only the participant didn't know, and this was another factor that we wanted to kind of improve, and we decided to do double-blinded. So
awesome. And then, how many carbs were in these bottles? And then, what did you put in each bottle, and what were the ratios?
So in this study, we did relative to body weight, the amount of sugar. So it was 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per hour. It was 1 to 1.5 of 1.5 was maltodextrin, and 1 was fructose. So a bit more glucose-based carbohydrates than it was fructose, or purely glucose or maltodextrin. This was quite a lot of sugar, and it was just dissolved in water and given in even portions every half an hour. So they were just drinking water, sugary water, basically, for 4 hours.
They did that for 4 hours.
Yeah.
For 4 hours. So, and the other one was dextrose and maltodextrin.
So dextrose is actually the same as glucose. So you never get glucose in research; you always get dextrose. So that's probably the same. Also, the difference between maltodextrin and glucose in terms of metabolism, there aren't any differences. The only difference is probably in the taste. So glucose is sweet, whereas maltodextrin is not. So that's why we used maltodextrin, that the drink wasn't as sweet.
So for me, I'm 84 kilograms. That would be 100 grams of sugar per hour. So every 30 minutes, you would have given me 50 grams in a drink, and I was supposed to drink that 30 minutes, and that was over 4 hours. So I would have got 400 grams of carbs, correct? And one of these mixes, either fructose and maltodextrin or dextrose and maltodextrin. One is the fructose and glucose, and another one is just glucose.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay, cool. And then what did you do?
Then we put people in the bike and ask them to ride in zone 2, let's say, at a fixed intensity for 1 hour first, during which we assessed what happens in the blood, and also we try to calculate how much of the carbohydrates that were ingested during the recovery were actually utilized during exercise. And we did that by using stable isotopes. So it's a special technique that's pretty widely used in the research. It's a pretty simple once you figure it out how it works. And then after this 1 hour, we added into the time trial. So it was a certain amount of work, a kilojoules, that has to be completed. Participants only had information about how much of this distance they have left. So no power output, real time power output, no information about heart rate, no music was allowed, no conversation, no talking, nothing. It was just purely them and the race.
So describe that isotope thing, because I thought that was pretty interesting. And what is that protocol, and what are you trying to find?
So carbon atoms have a few isotopes. So there are two, there are two major stable ones. This means that they have different number of protons. So their mass differs. And there is one that is has 12 protons, that is most widely used in the nature. So it's 99.9 99% of all those carbon atoms is actually with 12 protons. There is a really small fraction of carbon atoms with higher number of protons. So we used like different combinations of these carbohydrates with different carbon atoms, so that in the end we were able to collected the expired air, so the CO2, carbon dioxide, and these carbon atoms actually are coming from carbohydrates. So the ratio actually between 12 and 13C carbohydrates then can tell us what carbohydrates were used during exercise, because you kind of assume that the stored carbohydrates were of 12C origin. Let's simplify things. And the carbon atoms that were ingested were 13C, so were a bit heavier. And then we were able to like quantify the amount of carbohydrates that came from each source, if that makes sense.
That's so cool. Okay, so the TT, I did some math on myself, and I'm thinking for me, maybe around 655 kilojoules. Does it sound pretty close? About 650 kilojoules for a rider over?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in there. And it's going to depend on how fit that person is, how big they are. But that is probably 30 to 40 minutes for a rider, correct? Yeah. To put it out at an all-out max. So they're on these bikes. And two, for the power output, for everyone that's interested, they use these like special scientific bikes that have a power meter. It's like a stationary bike, right? And then you adjust it, and it has a power meter built in that's very sensitive, hopefully more sensitive than our like trainers. And then they all jump on that. And that's how you get like a very accurate power measurement. So what were the results?
So we found completely no difference between both conditions.
Ah! What?
Womp womp.
Yeah, we were really surprised to see that, especially after like the other two studies saw really nice improvements in exercise capacity. So we really didn't get and understand what was going on. So we have a few theories what might have happened. But yeah, it was really interesting to see these results, and we were kind of disappointed to see that there was no improvement with fructose.
And Tim, you didn't even. I'm sorry to cut you off. You didn't even see any difference in the combination of sugars in terms of GI distress either.
No,
but this was done in a lab and not on the hot roads of Kona, for instance.
Yeah. So what was really interesting with this discomfort thing was that so the first time that participants came into the lab, we did a familiarization session. So before the real experimental sessions, they like tried the protocol. And during this familiarization session, we only gave them like glucose and maltodextrin. So the worst possible carbohydrate mixture. And what was interesting to me was that at least like 2 or 3 people out of 8 experienced a lot of discomfort. So they were struggling to be on the bike for the hour and then the time trial. But that only happened during the familiarization session. So I don't know, maybe it was one session was enough to train the gut. But yeah, we didn't pick anything then on the GI distress later on during the experimental session. So I don't know whether this was just a one-time thing or was it something to do like really with gut training or not. I'm not sure about.
Right, and there's potentially going to be an environmental impact if you put them in hot or humid or some other challenge on the conditions.
Yeah, that's because there is even less perfusion of the gut in the hot conditions because more blood goes towards the skin. So yeah, that could be the prevalence should be much higher.
So in the discussion section, you had some theories about why your results were different, and that is super interesting. Can we go over those?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
So one of the really interesting things that happened was that blood glucose levels were much lower when fructose was ingested. So there are two participants that performed worse on the fructose-glucose condition, and there is one that performed one is much worse and one is marginally worse. And this participant that got much worse, his blood glucose levels dropped to 2.4 millimoles, so it's half of what is normal, and he was highly hypoglycemic. And if you think about what fructose should have done, so filling up the liver glycogen stores, this is kind of surprising finding, which I can't really explain what happened and why blood glucose levels were much lower. But clearly for this participant, it meant that he was hypoglycemic. I don't know whether this was one-time thing. We should have repeated the trial on him, but we couldn't. So this is something that could be interesting, although we know that there are no set values like in lactate threshold you've mentioned. So it's 4 millimoles for some and much higher for some. So even blood glucose can probably add up.
If you like this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up.
If you didn't like this video, you can give it a thumbs down, but let us know what you would have done differently in the comments below.
If you want to see more of these videos, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to become a faster cyclist, check out TrainerRoad.com.
Do it.
If you think I have better hair than Jonathan, give it a thumbs up. If not, leave a comment.
My hair is better than his.